and welcome to the very first episode of Father Mahoney's House of Retro. I know we got the introduction from the House of Horrors, but we decided to take a break this week from doing some horror movies. I know, y'all gonna like hit me or something, but we wanted to go back in time to a
Literally.
great movie from 1984. But let me introduce my awesome co-host, Cyrus Alderwood.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. I see we're live on YouTube, so I'm monitoring that in case anybody wants to chat over there. So thanks everybody. Yeah, we're going back in time, man. For
Yeah,
real.
well, we're seeking the power of love. Yes, I'm already hitting you guys with some Back to the Future vibes because we are Back to the Future right now. So, Cyrus, before we start talking about the movie, you remember your first recollection of seeing this movie?
Yes, absolutely. I saw the ad on TV and was so excited to go to the theater to watch this. I could not wait. As a matter of fact, Rob, I drove my parents nuts having to drop me off the movie theater to watch this thing at the movie theater no less than 6 times.
Nice. With me, I did go see it at the theater, and it was funny because I was actually a huge Michael J. Fox fan back then, a little tongue tied. From Family Ties, I always wanted to grow up to be uh, Alex P. Keaton. So, like, when this movie came out, it was like a no brainer. I was like, I'm there. And I also watched Christopher Lloyd when he was on Taxi. So, like,
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a great combination of like an older actor and a younger actor, and boy, did it exceed my expectations. I was expecting a great movie, but what I got was a pure masterpiece of filmmaking
Yeah,
from the great Robert Zemeckis.
absolutely. And just to toss this out there, I mean, I went to the movies and saw this movie so many times. Like you, I was a fan of Family Ties. I loved watching that show. I watched it every week. And yeah, so loved that character. When he got that movie part, I thought, well, I've got to go see this. But this was one of those movies in the '80s. Like if you like, it'd be hard to put this like on a Mount Rushmore because I don't know if you could do a Mount Rushmore of the '80s. But if you like had like a dirty dozen of
Yeah,
movies that defined a decade and an era, this movie is absolutely in the dirty dozen. And I mean, it would fit right up there with Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Breakfast Club and Lost Boys that we talked about a couple shows back.
yeah,
Lethal Weapon and so many of these Nightmare on Elm Street, so many of these movies that defined that era, that decade. It's like you could not really. I'm glad they're not going to remake this, right? Because
yes.
that you can't. Why mess with a masterpiece? But yeah, this is one of those movies that defined my growing up, defined my childhood, really had a huge impact on me in my my adolescent years growing up and the way I looked at the world.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like you said, this was a totally. If you're introducing somebody for the first time, and you sent them the top at least, I'll say 10 movies. This has to be one of the 10 movies you send them to kind of have that feel of what it was like to be our age back then. Like, and I love the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. It, it's one of the movies that I think is the best buddy movie, and they're so different, and that's what I love about them because the two, what do they say, opposites attract, and
Yeah,
like these two are completely opposite. You know, Michael J. Fox still in high school, and Doc, who's been trying to like get this experiment up and running for like 30 years, and he finally gets to test it out with who he considers basically his best friend. So to me, I go almost put this in a buddy movie. Also, there's so many different things you could put this movie into categories. There's so many different things you
yeah.
could.
And you couldn't really see anybody else other than Lloyd and Fox playing these roles.
No,
You really
not
couldn't. No one else could have that chemistry. That was just a chemistry that was just very unique in all of Hollywood.
and we'll talk about it later. But like even in the movies that came after, the characters, not just the lead characters, but the other characters always come into play.
Yeah.
And they in each movie they all have that great chemistry between each other. Like the different canons that we're going to cover, like between Biff and Griff and Mad Dog. Like they all have like their great parts in each of these movies. I think it was played by Thomas Wilson, and he does a fantastic job. Dude, he's that person you just love to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
It's one of those things when you see them, like not just Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, but like when you see some of the other supporting characters in other movies,
yeah,
the first thing you think of is like, oh, I remember him in Back to the Future.
Yeah, like with the Principal Strickland, you see him in the first two, and then the third one he actually plays like a different character, but they were cool enough to like keep him, on board because he had great chemistry in 1 and 2. Why ruin that dynamic?
Yeah, it's you couldn't pick a better two bunch of people. So, and then the supporting cast was, I think, just spot on.
Yeah,
even though when you went from like 1 to 2. And you had to switch a couple of things around, like other characters, sub characters couldn't be there. They still fit in very, very well.
I did a little research before the show, and I did not know this, but one of my favorite actors actually made his debut in this movie in a small role. Billy Zane. Billy Zane is one of Biff's like thugs that follow him around. I did not know that until like an hour ago. And I'm like, oh my God, Billy Zane was in this movie?
You know what? I had no idea either. No.
You know how he always had the one kid hanging around him with the funny glasses, and then the other one like was kind of like stiff as a board? When they first introduced Biff at the diner, he's the one that's standing on the left of Biff.
Okay.
And I think he only has like 1 or 2 lines in the whole movie, but like I love Billy Zane and Dead. What's that one where he plays a survivor of a boat attack and he gets picked up by Nicole Kidman and Sam Neill. Dead something. And then of course he's in Titanic, and then he's in Tales from the Crypt. So like Demon Knight.
I think Dead Calm is the name of the movie you're looking at.
Dead Calm, you're right. Yes, Dead Calm.
I remember that. That was a great movie.
Yeah, so like
way underrated.
I never knew he started his career. I thought Dead Calm was his first movie, and no, he made his debut in Back to the Future. So it's a new piece of knowledge I just learned. So
yeah, it's so fun. I think when you watch movies like this, especially movies back in the 80s, where you see an actor that blew up later on in life, and you're like, oh, that was their first time, or like they did a cameo and you didn't know who they were. But like later on, like it's like, wow, that was amazing. Like you remember Top Gun when Top Gun came out.
Yeah.
And when he at the very end when he landed back and he was talking to Iceman, it's like, you could be my wingman anytime.
Yeah.
The guy standing behind him was Nuke LaLoosh from I can't forget his real name, but from Bull Durham.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right? So
yes.
The Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption, that guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tim Robbins.
Yeah, he was standing back there, a very young Tim Robbins. I'm like, wow, I never noticed. But like about a year ago, I noticed.
Yeah. And also a guy who ended up being in Young Guns was also in this movie, Casey Semeco. He plays the one with the funny glasses. And he ended up being with Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen and Young Guns. He was one of the ones that they recruited later, and when they were in the big showdown at the end, they got shot. He was one of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in the second of the movies we're talking about tonight, there's another actor who made his first movie debut.
Really?
Tiny young man. When we start talking about it, I'll spoil it. I'll leave a little teaser here for people. A very well-known Hollywood actor. He's all grown up now, folks. But yes, that is a young man. He was in Back to the Future Part 2.
Okay, so let's see. We're about 12 minutes of the show. We can start talking about at the power of love. Okay, since we can't get YouTube permission to sing, I had to sing part of it.
Oh, you listen to the news. Gotta love that, man. Gotta love it.
And a little spoiler alert. You might know this, but some of the people who are watching are going to watch later. Might not know that Huey Lewis is actually in this movie.
Yes.
Yes, he plays the guy at the auditions who tells Marty McFly that his band is just too loud.
I know. Go figure. Like back then, this is another little funny little personal story. I was such a Huey Lewis in the News fan.
Me too.
And when this movie came out, my big sister, her and her boyfriend, who she married, they would go to all these concerts over in Johnson City, Tennessee. And my very first concert was Huey Lewis in the News. I was so excited, man.
Yeah.
Huey Lewis in the News, and it was when they had album 4 that just came out. They had Jacob's Ladder and all that. So I got to see like The Power of Love and Hip to Be Square and all those awesome songs by Huey Lewis. Yeah. It was so cool. But to be such a big fan of his and him in that movie. And then my very first concert right after that.
Well, when I was younger, as soon as I was able to kind of like, do a paper route and save money and everything, Sports was like the third album I ever bought. And with my own, I was the type of kid that I didn't want my parents buying me things. I wanted to earn my place. So like when I had enough money after like 2-3 weeks, getting tipped for bringing papers to people, I'd put that money towards buying records. And my first album I bought was Kool and the Gang, Emergency. The second one, and this is gonna be kind of funny, but Whitney Houston, the album that had Greatest Love of All.
Yeah.
And the third one was Huey Lewis in the News. And ironically, the last two kind of tie into one of my other favorite movies, American Psycho, where both artists get played before he goes on a killing spree.
Oh, I know. I think it's so funny when he stops to give you the fun facts about this band and this album, and then he kills you.
Yeah, when I watched that movie before we started with the movie, when I was watching that movie, they play Huey Lewis and then they play Whitney Houston, and all I could think about is the third song's gonna be Kool and the Gang. Luckily it wasn't, so it saved Kool and the Gang for me. But like, I can't even listen to Hip to Be a Square anymore. It's without thinking about Patrick Bateman.
Oh, I know, man. I hear the song Susudio, and it's like, oh man, like that ruined it for me.
Yeah, but back to our topic. See, just a little fun fact there. So, Back to the Future, 1985, directed by Robert Zemeckis. I didn't get to look at the budget for this or how much, but I know it made a lot of money. Because that's how they could afford to make 2 and 3 so quickly after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first recollection, like I said, I went to the theater just because the power of Alex P. Keaton, and I just became like much bigger than before, where Michael J. Fox was like almost like a demigod to me. Every movie after that, I have to go.
Yeah.
But my first impression was the DeLorean scene when Doc Brown tells him to come to Twin Oaks Mall, and I wasn't much of a car enthusiast, but I knew what a DeLorean was. So I was like, I thought that was cool that they picked a very cool looking car for this scene, which now has become iconic. Like, you can see this at any kind of convention, I think it's actually a part of the was it one of the things in Washington D.C. like a museum. Yeah. I think it's actually in a museum now. So, and just to think that me and you got to see this, and now it's part of history. It's part of Americana. If you want to go that route,
it totally is. It totally is part of it. Like American, American. The thing is, we talk about movies all the time on this, but I don't think we really understand. Like, a lot of times we take for granted the scope of just how important Hollywood has been in like art imitating life. And from no matter what it is, from war movies to comedies to dramas to romantic pieces to horror.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go down the line and explain what America's been through by so many of these things. And this was a time in America, like, we come off of like a long malaise, economic malaise, and trouble with like Iran and the Middle East, and it was like Reaganomics, but like so much of the culture shifted. It's like, all right, we're tired of being depressed, man. We're gonna have a little fun.
Yeah.
And for a decade, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it was totally like that, even in the horror genre. But
Yeah.
this movie was probably one of the most fun movies. And like you said, anything Michael J. Fox was in after that, Secret of My Success, Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I still want to like go dancing on top of moving van, but you can't. But Michael J. Fox could. So.
Oh yes, like I had this belief that if Michael J. Fox can do it, I know I can't.
Yeah.
like you said with the Teen Wolf scene, I fell in love with that movie. I fell in love with Secret of My Success. What was that? Big City.
Bright Lights, Big City.
Bright Lights, Big City. Yeah, and that had one of my favorite soundtracks of it, besides this one, because like I still listen to Huey Lewis and the News today. In fact, I was flirting with the idea of doing my Airband again. That's why I've been posting them on my page. But the hard part about posting those is the YouTube copyrights. So I'm trying to figure out a way around it, because I know a lot of YouTubers can get around it, but I think they have licenses, and I don't know if I want to pay that, but I'm trying to figure out a way to do it without getting flagged, because that's why I stopped doing them. Is because every other one was you can't post that. You can put new music, and I'm like, but I'm singing this. Like, what do we mean put new music? Like, so.
I think those old bands ought to be flattered when their music is brought back up and they can get a few more sales because somebody else was kind of paying homage to it. Like, after so many years, I don't think they should care.
Yeah, I got a like from John Waite once because I did When I See You Smile by Bad English.
Yeah, awesome band. Yeah.
Yes, and like 3 days later, I get a like, and I go to see who it was. It was freaking John Waite that liked my video. I was like, holy shit. Another underrated artist, by the way. So my favorite, one of my favorite scenes, I have many favorite scenes, but one of my favorite is the opening when Marty puts in the thing to the big amplifier. To me, that was every kid's dream to do something like that. Like, holy shit, look at this amplifier. I gotta plug in. Yeah, that set the tone for the rest of the movie, because you knew right then Marty McFly was not just a rocker, but he liked to party. You putting your amp, you're plugging into that kind of amplifier and not expecting any feedback.
I think probably one of my favorite parts was when he was playing there at the dance, and then they broke out into a little Chuck Berry, and then he was just playing. He started going all Eddie Van Halen on everybody, and they all just froze. Like, what the piss is this?
Yeah.
Like they had no idea.
What did he say? He goes, "Yeah, I guess you guys aren't ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it."
You're gonna love it. I know that was a great scene, and but one of the cool things about it is that, like, as they were altering history, like he had that photo with him. And he would see him disappearing or like coming back there toward the end. He was about to die on stage. And finally, his old man beat up Biff out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
and saved his life.
Well, like Doc Brown said, like you can't run into your parents. It's like the space-time continuum could be altered, and in that scene when he realized it wasn't Marty in the car, it was Biff. You had that moment where he was frozen because he had never stood up to Biff, and then when he sees that Biff pushes her back, it's that like instinct that came out of him, like, I got to do something. I got to protect this girl. And that scene, after Marty watched it and everything, I saw what happened where he got knocked out. He told Doc Brown, he goes, "You mean he's never stood up to Biff?" And then he has that slight pause, and then he's, because I think Doc knew that not Marty, but George just basically altered his own future too
Yeah.
by doing that. But a lot of people forget that in a way it was Marty that kind of caused the shift, because it was him that fell out of the tree that got hit by his grandfather basically, and right there time was changed because it was supposed to be George that got hit by the car.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not to like wax sentimental about this, but like that particular scene, like, because George was a very shy, afraid, he was an introvert. He had no confidence. And then that one thing that he did in his life as a teenager, like, impacted the rest of his life. And like when you go back to the future, they're well off. He had the confidence to chase his dreams as a writer, and Biff is out there.
Everybody was well dressed too, because remember in the beginning, I think his name was Dave McFly, the older brother. He was like working at like a fast food place, and then he's like, "Why are you dressed like that?" He goes, "I always dress like when I go to the office." Like the office, like Burger King doesn't have an office.
But can you imagine when you're a kid, and maybe you did, but like when you're a kid, if you're introverted or shy or whatever, and you see how like just a little bit of confidence in this nerdy character, it's like, hey, I can do that too. Like you sort of want to believe when you're a young person and impressionable, and you see a cool movie that has kind of a lesson like that. I thought that was pretty good stuff.
And then like later on when Doc basically says, apparently your mom has the hots for you, like she's like, you feel for Marty when he wakes up and he's in the Calvin Klein underwear, and she keeps calling him Calvin. To me, all I can think about is, I hope my mom never like falls in love with me if I ever fell back in time. It was such an awkward. You can see how awkward it was for him too. Like, how do you know my name is Calvin? Like, why you keep calling me Calvin? It says all over your underwear. So basically, she already's been looking at your junk. I was like, no, that's not ever happening to me. I'm staying far away from my parents if I go back in time.
I'll go to a different town. If I go back in time, I'm going to like Clearwater, Florida. Something.
But you felt that awkwardness every time, like Lorraine would, like, even like in the car scene later on when he was supposed to be there when George saved her, and like she keeps trying to make and then she goes, I don't know what it is, but it was like kissing my brother.
Gross.
There's so many iconic, like we could sit here and do a 3-hour show on just this movie, but obviously we don't have that kind of time. But what? Name another favorite scene that you had in that.
Like you, that one when he played the guitar at the beginning and it like blew him back. He's like rock and roll. He's like laying it on his junk. That was really cool. At the end, though, I always thought it was it was a very good climax of the movie to have Doc drop the cord when he's trying to plug it up right when the lightning comes through.
Yeah.
That to me, that whole scene right there was really, really cool. And then when he disappeared and he came back, and the final scene, actually, because he disappears, like he looks like he's about to crash into the theater at the end of the street, and then he ends up going back through the mall parking lot or whatever, and then he goes down and sees the terrorists are driving off. You felt like he had lost. He was just too late. And then Doc finally read that letter he tore up.
And a lot of people didn't catch this, but the mall name changed when they came back.
Yeah,
it was Twin Pine Mall, and then it was like One Pine Mall.
Yeah,
because Marty had run over the other pine tree.
That's right, when it was trying to grow.
Yeah. But I think that's great attention to detail to throw that in, because Marty had destroyed one of the pines. And so, like in the future now, instead of 2 pines, he only had 1. So now it's that little subtle change was still recognized, and I thought that was great writing by the writers of this.
Another iconic scene was when he first went back in time, and he parked in that barn, and he gets out of that car, and the other this kid goes outside to see what's going on. And when he sees Marty get out of it, he looks at his comic book, and it's like Invaders from Outer Space.
Yeah.
And he just like passes out.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many different iconic things that came into this movie. Another one was, every time he tried to harass George about asking Lorraine out, he's like, no one, not even anyone from out of this planet will convince me to do that. And then Marty shows up with his Walkman, and he's playing Van Halen. And it looks like George is being stabbed by like a mass murderer because he's like, ah!
Yeah.
I was like, you're scaring him with Eddie Van Halen. Of course, that transcends to the scene at the dance where he does the Eddie Van Halen thing and the Jimi Hendrix playing behind his back, and
yeah,
and the expression of the band members was priceless. They're looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
Yeah, it was so cool that they brought up Van Halen because, remember Van Halen just broke up, and 1984 was like all the rage. That album, 1984.
Yeah.
Panama and Hot for Teacher, Jump. I mean, that was like the biggest songs back then.
Yeah.
And the fact that he like plugs that into George, he's like, like you said, like he's been attacked by static electricity or something. He don't know what's going on. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how remember the singer that hurt his hand by opening the trunk. His name was Marvin Berry. He calls Chuck in the middle of the Johnny B. Good. He goes, "Listen to this." So it's basically Marty McFly invented that song. That's how it ended up.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
a little bit of trivia about this movie. I think just to kind of, I don't know if a lot of people knew this, but. Michael J. Fox was the first guy to get the role for Marty McFly.
Really?
Yeah. This was. Do you know who the actor Eric Stoltz?
Yes.
He was cast as Marty McFly. And,
now, see, I love Eric Stoltz, but I don't think he could have pulled off that role.
Well, they realized he wasn't pulling it off, so they realized they had to make a change. At the time, Michael J. Fox couldn't do that because of his commitment to Family Ties.
Yeah. So
they had to go back and work with his schedule. Michael J. Fox was their first choice to begin with.
Yeah.
But they went back, and when the schedule was right, they started filming again. So here's the thing: when Michael J. Fox came in, this was I think like I don't know 6 weeks after they started filming.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, it's Eric Stoltz is not right for the part. So Zemeckis wanted Fox. He believed he could come in. He was hitting the role perfectly, right? But the only problem was that the girl that was playing Jennifer Parker, his girlfriend at the time, was a different woman also.
I can't remember her name, but I remember.
Yeah, so she was much taller. So like, well, this is not going to work. So now we have to recast Jennifer Parker's role. And that's when, what's her name? Claudia Wells.
Claudia Wells, yeah.
Yeah. So that's when she came in. Because she was much shorter, and Michael J. Fox is not very tall at all. So that's when Melora Hardin. I just looked it up. That was the one who was originally cast.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, they had Claudia Wells play Jennifer, and that's how she got the role. And so here's the weird thing about going into in the second movie, she was not able to come and do the second movie. Because she had illness in her family. Her mother was very ill, and she didn't want to leave her side. So she had retired from acting. So Jennifer Grey, a lot of people remember her from what was it? Iconic movie, Red Dawn.
Dawn.
She got the role as the girlfriend and like going forward.
But she didn't stay in that role though.
No,
because Elizabeth Shue.
Or no, I'm not. Yeah, you're right. Elizabeth Shue is who I meant to say, not Jennifer Grey.
I thought maybe they were considering because Jennifer Grey was blowing up at that time too.
Yeah, she was considered for that role, but maybe she didn't take it or something. But yeah, Elizabeth Shue, who was with what was that? Adventures of Babysitting.
Yes,
that came out a little bit after she got that role. But Elizabeth Shue, she also had in Cocktail with Tom Cruise.
Yes, and that's actually one of my favorite roles from both of them.
Oh, I know. I love that movie. So this role actually catapulted her into bigger things.
Yeah, and then what the guy, the other bartender was Brian Brown, I think. Yeah. And he was terrific too. Yeah. But that's a topic for another episode, guys. We'll have to do cocktail early next year. But or we might just do a Tom Cruise show. I don't know because
Here's
he has so many movies. Go ahead.
one more quick history on that movie. And I like the clock tower. You know that big
Yes.
the big famous building. They originally were going to do this in a different place. Like they were going to. The original script called for like them to harness the power of nuclear bomb test explosion or something.
Yeah.
They didn't have the budget to do any of that stuff. So that's when they had to do the rewrite and come up with what happened at that courthouse with that clock tower.
Yeah.
And if you look at that clock tower,
Yeah.
that clock tower is the same one that was used in To Kill a Mockingbird. They found they were
That's
looking around
right. That's right.
and it was like in the back lot of the studio, and they're like, "Oh, well, let's just use this."
That's right. I totally forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me. Because another one of my favorites is how they transcended Goldie Wilson, the guy who was the mayor. And then in part two, he's just it's like sweeping the diner.
Yeah.
And Marty goes, "Yeah, one day you'll be mayor." He's like, "Mayor Goldie Wilson." I like the sound of that. So they kind of give Marty the credit for like giving him the inspiration years later to run for mayor.
That's so funny.
All three of these parts do such a great job in like keeping the McFly name and the Tannen name alive through all three of these movies. So, and they kind of tie them all in. Where like the Tannens were always like the badasses, the bullies. So it was cool how they incorporated all that into all three. Like in part two when you see Griff for the first time. We'll talk about more about this, and then Biff end up, when they start the movie where Biff saw the DeLorean flying away and he sees it again in the future. And of course, he goes back in time, changes history and everything. So, and we get three different time zones in part two. We get the future, 2015. We get the 1985 that they started at, and we get the 1955, where now there's two Marty McFlys back there.
Yeah, that movie was all over the place. You know how much? They almost called this like Zemeckis titled it "Back to the Future," and a lot of people in the studio didn't like the name. And they got these letters that come in, like they were trying to call it Spaceman from Pluto.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, Spielberg's like, that's a funny joke. Yeah, keep them coming." And nobody ever bothered to try to give him another suggestion after that. But yeah, it's crazy how they would come up with like, you had a great title, and then they just tried to like, I don't know. I'm glad if they went with a different title, I wonder if half the audience would have bothered showing up.
I don't know, because like I remember seeing like the trailer for the first time, and that made me even want to see it more, because I was like, not just the name Michael J. Fox or Christopher Lloyd, but that trailer drew me in. And I was telling my mom, I'm like, I'm seeing this, like it's not even like up for debate. If I'll pay for my own way if I have to. But yeah, my mom was always very supportive of like my entertainment, like my love for entertainment, not just music, but I fell in love with movies like right away when HBO first hit the airwaves and they had that cool intro, like that drew me in first of all. And then of course when I watched the movie, and one of them was Back to the Future after I saw, and I was just like, how epic is this? Like these kids today don't realize how much they missed, like how much they watch them now, and of course they're like, I watch these reaction channels where they see something for the first time, and I'm sitting there going, how is this your first time watching Back to the Future? Like you're 30 years old. Like you never watched television now, because it played everywhere on cable.
Oh, they probably still make a ton of money from it in syndication. It's on all the time.
Yeah. And it makes me sad. Before we start here, it makes me sad to see, the state of health that Michael J. Fox is in, because he's one of those. I guarantee, he's one of those. The moment we get that bad news, I'm gonna be bawling for like days.
Yeah, that's when celebrities die. I mean, I don't think much about it, but there's certain when musicians die. It's like, man, you sort of felt that. Like Eddie Van Halen died.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
there's a part of my growing up. And then same thing with Prince.
Yeah. Oh, Prince, I bawled. I bawled because I got to see Prince live, and to this day, it was the greatest show I've ever seen. And anybody who knows me knows I'm more metal, but Prince was one of those that he's a one in a lifetime musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He played 19 instruments, and we can do an episode on Prince one day too if you want.
Yeah.
19 instruments, and like he played every genre: jazz, funk, rock, soul, you name it.
Yeah, and he could play them all well too. Like you never heard a drop off when he went from the Revolution to the New Power Generation, which was more funk, and he mastered that. He mastered like love songs. He mastered like someone said to me once on a reaction. Well, not said to me, but they're like, I didn't know Prince played guitar. I'm like, Prince plays guitar better than like 95% of people that's ever played guitar.
Yeah.
He just preferred that dance sound. So you never got to hear the guitar. And then when he came out with that tribute to George Harrison, when he came out and did the guitar part of while my guitar sleeps.
Gently
my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing performance.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that you didn't hear in the background when it comes to music, especially when somebody's playing more like a classical guitar, you have any idea how hard it is to play classical guitar. Like, I mean, I could learn a few bar chords and play some Metallica before I would ever even come close to hitting notes doing that. And that just shows how good that guy was. And he was used, you know, he made movies that were his own soundtracks. But, you know, too bad he didn't have something in this one.
I know. Yeah. Well, while we're adding to the list of shows, Purple Rain might have to be a topic one day too.
You know, instead of a DeLorean, maybe they used a little red Corvette.
Yeah. Oh, what's funny is before we go to part two, because I keep saying that, but the last thing about part one I want to say is remember the under the enchantment under the sea dance scene when George is trying to like keep busy, so he's like swaying back and forth, but it's like terrible. Can you imagine if he broke up into the dance he did in Friday the 13th Part 4?
Oh my God. Yeah, that'd have been interesting, wouldn't it?
I think they would have locked him up in 1955. Like, this guy's obviously delusional. Let's keep him behind now.
Yeah,
he may drink too much.
Yeah, he would have never gotten married, much less had kids. So that's funny.
But if you have anything else to say about part one before we go on?
No, but I do think it's interesting that in part 2 and 3, they filmed them at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the first one was so wildly successful, they had the money for it, and they thought, well, we're just gonna film them both.
But they held off for a couple of years because I think the second one came out in either 89 or 90. I think it was 89, and part 3 was 90. But so we start the part 2 with he's seeing Jennifer. I'm saying Jennifer Grey now. You see Elizabeth Shue come, and he's like, "Oh, are you a sight for sore eyes?" And they're about to take the truck out, and then here comes Doc Brown again, back from the future, because he's like, "I'm going to go about 20, 25 years in the future." Well, he ended up going 30 years into the future, and he's like, "We got to do something about your kids," and the shocking part was that Doc invented like something to wipe out your memory, because Elizabeth, she's like, "Oh, what kind of? We're gonna see my our wedding. We're gonna see this. We're gonna see that." And she just kept rambling on. All of a sudden, Doc just hits her with this like this memory pipe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what? Doc? Yeah, Doc's still doing inventions after all these years.
Oh yeah, it just drops her in the alley right there. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And then, of course, Marty is brought there to confront Griff and kind of like convince his son. What was his son's name? Martin? I think it was Martin McFly. Or no, Martin was from the past.
He was with his grandson Griff, right? Was that?
Yeah, Griff was Biff's son.
Yeah.
And then, well, anyways, I think I'll just call him Martin. Gets thrown behind the counter, and there's, he takes off the hat, and he's a spitting image of his son, a little bit older, but with the hat on, he kind of looked the same age. So Griff is thinking, oh, see, you're not going to call me. He's like, no, Griff, you got like blah blah blah. You like, and so yeah, he tries to hit him like he hit Biff, and of course now they're all savvy. They know the sneak attacks, and they have that same scene when he rips the thing from the kid and makes it like a hoverboard, and yeah, and remember Biff, who was a lot older in this one. Biff's like, something seems so familiar about this.
Yeah.
I love the incorporation of Griff and Biff all in the same scene, and then later on when they go back to 1955, it's the older Biff that tries to tell the younger Biff, like, hey, you're going to get confronted by a teen in a crazy doc about this book, the Farmer's Almanac and the Farmer's Sports Almanac. And, when Michael J. Fox goes back to 1984, remember the scene when he gets to his house and there's bars on the window?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you knew right there that something happened where, Biff came back and dropped off the car, and then later on they find out that Biff's cane was in the car. So, like, Biff must have changed the future. So now we have to go back to 1955 again. And he's like, make sure you don't run into your other self now out here, because the other 1985 McFly is there too.
Yeah.
It becomes a little tricky, but I still like how they pulled off some of the scenes.
Yeah, and it's so cool that they a couple things that they predicted, like the tennis shoes that would lace themselves up and you could pump them up.
Yeah.
And Nike did those back in 2008.
Yeah.
Like those are the shoes that were available in 2015. I think they just did it for that movie, but then the hoverboard, you sort of get those now, right? And then
you have the ones that have it's like electric bicycles.
Yeah. And they famously predicted the Cubs would the World Series in 2015.
That one was the best prediction they ever made, because I think it was 1 year difference. Yeah, 1 year off.
And the funny thing is, in the future, they had them beating like a team called the Miami Gators. And Miami didn't have a team when they made that, but now Miami has a team.
Yeah.
So it's so funny that the future like sort of played out in that movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Who knew the Cubs would win?
I know that was the biggest shock, not just prediction wise, but actually happening. Because after my Red Sox finally won the World Series, the Cubs were like the longest reigning without a championship. And how ironic it happened 1 year after prediction of a 1985 movie.
I know.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about the movie. I'm trying to remember, because it's been a while since I've seen the second one.
Yeah.
At the end, the doc, I think, was going to go ahead and like destroy it. Did he destroy that almanac?
Marty did. I believe Marty put it in a pail with fire on it. And then everything started going back, and like because Doc was supposed to be committed, because now Biff is trying to kill off the people who know about him. So they got Doc Brown committed, and obviously Marty's son was supposed to die. So I think Biff was trying to get revenge by getting rid of the Doc, because obviously the Doc was the brains behind the project. Marty was just going along with the ride, but Doc is the one that invented the time machine. So I think he really wanted to get rid of the Doc, because the Doc was the one that could able to figure out what happened to the time-space continuum. So, and then of course Doc became a free man. He never got committed. He was deemed a hero, and but I thought the ending was probably my favorite part, when they thought they finally got away with everything, and then they were in the lightning storm, and Doc's the car got hit by the lightning, because lightning is the only thing that can make that thing go back and forth, and you're left with like, how's Marty getting back now? Because like that was his transportation, it's gone now. So, and then you see the car rolling up at the end, and it's the UPS guy. He's like, we've had this in our possession for like 70 years.
Oh yeah, the Western Union guy.
Yeah, the Western Union guy. He's like, are you Marty McFly? He's like, nobody knows me here in 1955. How does this guy know my name? Yeah.
Funny.
No, I love that scene because, it finally explained where Doc went, and obviously it was 1885 at that point. And he's like, "The Doc's alive. He's alive in 1885, but he's alive." And this guy's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, buddy."
Yeah, that was so funny.
Yeah.
And then like when the car was that the second one when he takes off from 1955, then all of a sudden Marty's running back down the street in a leather jacket.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Doc has this relief on his face, like, "Oh, we did it." And then he's patting the Doc, and Doc's like, didn't realize it was Marty because he just said Marty, and then he turns around like, "Ah!" He's like, "I sent you back to the future, but I'm back from the future." He goes, "Great Scott." He passed out right there.
Yeah, and then it was pretty clever because, like at the very beginning of the third one, they reopened the third movie with that very same scene.
Yeah, and I gotta say one thing about Leah Thompson in the Biff continuum. She is damn hot. Like they made her like more lively, peppy. Obviously, Biff picked out her wardrobe because it was always like showing her breasts and like big breasts. Even Marty's like, you're so." He wants to say you're so big, but he's trying to he's like, "But this is my mom. I can't." He's like, you're so. And she goes, "No, you're back on the 55th floor. The 55th floor."
That's funny.
Yeah.
And, but she was a cute little thing in Howard the Duck too. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, she's the only one that I can think of that actually had duck sex.
Who knew? And we have our producer back.
Mr. Producer, how did the game go?
Can you hear us now?
No producer here.
Oh, it's Cody. See, I'm blind, so I have an excuse. How you doing, Cody?
Hey, my mustache is exposed, so I'm going to consider that an insult to our producer.
So while
where,
you're here,
where are we at? All I heard was Leah Thompson's breast, and
we're in that. Well, we're finishing up part 2. We were talking about I was just saying how much different Leah Thompson looks in this one, compared to the older Leah Thompson from part 1. She's very reserved in the beginning of part 1, and
what about the aging makeup in this? They did a pretty damn good job for what they had in the early 80s.
Yeah, they did. Because when she went back, when Marty went back in time, obviously you see the younger version of Leah Thompson. And I was telling Cyrus that how weird would it be if you woke up in your mother's bedroom and she knew your name by your underwear? She kept calling him Calvin, and he's like, "Why do you keep calling me Calvin?" And she's like, "That's what it says on your underwear." So it's already she's been checking out his junk. And he's the son. How wouldn't you be a little off and say my mom's been looking at my junk?
Hell, that's how Mad Dog Tannen got his name, don't you know? His mom to a bottle of Mad Dog 2020.
So yeah, we were talking about part 2, some of our favorite scenes. And
knew he was going to be no good. She knew it.
Well, Cody, what would be your favorite scenes from 1 and 2? Since we already did 1.
Oh, God.
What would be some of your favorite scenes?
That's so climactic. Both in part 1, both when the lightning strikes and Marty hits it, and success. These. Or even when he gets back and Doc flies in from the future in the DeLorean. I mean, just iconic cinematic moments there. I mean, it's just a staple. and part 2. You know, I wasn't. It's probably my least favorite of the franchise. Actually, it's no question about it. And it's great. It has its moments in it, and I don't know why I don't love it as much as I probably should. But I guess the really what a lot of people tend to gravitate in 2015, isn't it? When they go, and I don't know, those just didn't really hook me. I just thought it seemed just a little too far.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up the first one, no matter like any kind of
exactly big
groundbreaking,
shoes to fill.
Yeah, and if it was a standalone film, it'd still be a great film. But following up from the first, because the first one's obviously I think the best in the franchise, then the third one, and then the second one. But,
yeah, I think we're all there on that. Like 1, 3, 2, but 2 did have some cool iconic moments, like when he had to go back to the dance, in part 2, and he's watching himself on the stage. He kind of gives that like, like pretty good. And now he has to avoid all the thugs again, because Marty's on stage and he's in the crowd. So it's like, I like how they kind of incorporated like Marty trying not to get seen by himself.
And I don't think we'd ever seen that in a film before, where they went back, you retreaded the original and the sequel and interacted in the scenes from it. I mean, that blew that part. That's my favorite part about Back to the Future Part 2. Those scenes.
I'm glad you brought that up, Cody, because that actually sparked a lawsuit. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Crispin Glover would not come back and do the second one.
Well, I knew that.
He hated the first one. So they had to have him in the second one. So they were just reusing some of his scenes from the first one and stuff from the cutting floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then they used, I guess, some prosthetics on somebody else and his voiceover.
For him in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
And he got pissed because he's like, I wasn't in that film. He said, I understand using the other stuff that we filmed, but I wasn't in this. You're using my likeness. I'm going to sue you. So he sued. And they settled out of court. But they said that was the first, like, you know how today everybody's all up in the air about AI and using your likeness in a movie.
Yeah.
That was the first court case that sparked all this stuff off.
If that would have went extreme one way or the other, just imagine what impact that could have had on the current situation with AI likenesses.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was crazy how, like, that became a topic then because of the guy from Friday the 13th Part 4. Like, who knew, right? It's just, but it was, it is what it is. They settled out of court.
The bad part is, I love Crispin Glover. I think he's a really funny, quirky actor. But from what I understand, even in interviews with him, he even admits that he was kind of full of himself back then.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask. Go ahead. No, I was going to.
I was just going to say the actor they had playing him in Part 2, and that was a good idea. You know, he can't get Crispin Glover, so let's put some prosthetics on a guy that can do a good Crispin Glover impression and hang him upside down.
Yeah.
If that's not, if the impression's not good enough, we'll just turn him upside down. Then nobody will notice unless they turn their TV upside down.
That's exactly what they did. Yeah.
No, I was going to ask Cody. The dance scene in Part 1, when they're at the enchantment under the sea dance, would you have broke out laughing if he did the Jimbo dance from Part 4 of Friday the 13th?
Oh, that would have been great. That would have been great.
But me and Cyrus were like, he probably would get committed after that. Back in 1955.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't that established then, I guess, but that would have been a great nod. But if Back to the Future would have been made 10 years later rather than 1 year later than the final chapter, then I could see that then.
Yeah, Rob, I was teasing earlier that there was another actor who made their debut in Part 2.
That's right. That's right.
Big famous actor. Now think back to when Marty goes in and they're at the arcade. There's a little kid in there by the name of Elijah Wood, future Frodo, no less.
Oh yeah,
Made his Hollywood debut in that vintage themed diner where he was playing those arcade games.
yeah. Is he the one that said, "You have to use your hands"?
Yeah, he was 8 years old. Yeah, when he did that. But yeah, Frodo, all people. So.
Well, so we had 2 aspiring actors so far through 1 and 2, because I was telling Cyrus that I realized Billy Zane is in part 1. Billy Zane is one of the cronies with Biff when they confront Marty at the cafeteria. He's the one that's standing on the left side, and he's only in like a couple scenes. But Billy Zane was in Back to the Future.
Yep.
Yeah. So we can do some rating before we get to part 3. So, Cody, since you just joined, what do you rate 1, and then what do you rate 2? We'll do my system. I know you guys like to do the Pabst Blue Ribbon. We'll just do 1 through 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Okay. So we'll do it that way then. I'll give it part 1. I'll give. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna do Pabst Blue Ribbon. We'll do it your way. I'll give it.
That's gimmick infringement if I use your system.
So the more the better, right?
Yes.
The more points. 5 is excellent. Okay, so I've got to give part 1 5 yin and yang and yin.
Yingling. I salute
Yingling.
Yeah.
Yangling. Yeah, what you said. Beers, because it's a great time. And if you get to, like any time travel movie, if you get to thinking about it too much, you need to drink or be on some kind of hallucinogenic, because it's going to mess with your head, and you're not going to be able to make ends meet and figure out any cohesive plot, because that's the way time travel movies work. I'm sorry. I love them most of the time, but yeah, that most of the time they just punch holes all through themselves. That being said, part 2, wow, they really got innovative with this, and there were a lot of firsts on this one. And for the time, the special effects were just off the hook amazing. And I would rate it higher, but I'm still pissed off that my parents wouldn't buy me those cool 2015 sunglasses.
We were talking about that just before you walked in.
Promoting the movie. I'm pissed off about that still. So I've got to get part 2 just for young.
Okay.
Yeah,
we were actually, Cody. We were actually talking about the things that came true. We were talking about the things that did come true from the like the past. Like the Cubs winning 1 year after predicted in the movie. Like that was crazy. Hoverboards, the shoelaces that you just talked about. Like it's so crazy that how many things a movie predicted came true.
Yeah.
Also, video calls.
The Simpsons, so.
No, the video calls too. The video calls came through too. Remember when he got called by his boss because Marty was Marty from the future was gonna help hide some money or embezzle it, and he gets the message like, what's it called? You're fired, and he gets that call from his boss, his Chinese boss. He's like, I just saw that transaction you just put through. Like, holy shit! They predicted fucking video calls too.
Yeah, that was a cool movie though. That was some cool stuff. I don't know. I wonder if that's where what's his face from Apple got some of his ideas.
Probably
FaceTime.
So Cyrus, what do you give 1 and 2 so far?
Well, first of all, man, I do congratulate you on a fine choice of lager, because Yingling beer is pretty darn good.
Thank you. Well, they were out of PBR, so
well, it's a Pennsylvania.
Had to stick with an American beer.
It's a Pennsylvania brew, Dad and his 2 sons. So I'm just saying, I know it well. Yeah, first one, man, because I said like earlier, it was so iconic. It made the Dirty Dozen of like a movie that defines a decade or fits perfectly in a decade. I'd throw that sucker. I give it a 4. Because the second one had such big shoes to fill, probably give it a 3.
Yeah. The second one, right? 3?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with Cody's 5 for the first one. The second one, I love the second half of the movie, but more than I like the beginning, like the 2015 scenes. I thought the flying cars was like a cool idea, but like, to me, it was long-winded a little bit. But when they get back to 1955, and like Cody said, that was something new they were doing. You never saw that in a movie where a character is in the same room with the character from another movie on like the same platform. And so I like how they did that. I liked how they incorporated, everything that happened from the past that is in. I mean, I don't think there was higher stakes too at this time because, like, when we went into the future, he went to save his son, and now he's stuck back in the past again. And then, of course, we end it with Doc getting electrocuted back to 1885. But like I told you, Cyrus, before Cody got here, I loved the Western Union guy scene. I love that scene. Like, you find out where Doc is, and of course, in the letter, it basically tells Marty not to go get him, but we all knew. And if you guys went to see part 2 in the theater, they actually ended it with the coming attractions already made for part 3. And I was,
well, yeah, because they shot them back to back.
Yeah, but that's how they ended it. Like, you never got teaser trailers that fast back in those days. Like, that was a teaser trailer right there. On your visit to C2, you get to see what 3 already has in store for you. And I was like, I'm there. I love the Wild West scene.
If I'm not mistaken, at least as far as I know, that was the first 2.
Yeah, because I love those movies that are like a stranger in a strange world type movie. Like Beastmaster 2. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Beastmaster 2, but I love that setting where he's like,
Hell comes to Frogtown.
Yeah, I know you like that one too. But to finish my ranking, I'm going to be 3.5. Also, like Cyrus said. No, Cyrus, you said 3.
Yeah.
I'll go 3.5. I'll go 3.5 because the second part of part 2 saved it for me. If it was all in the future, I think I might have probably done a 1 or a 2, or 1.5 to 2. So we can move on to part 3. So, did anybody get to see this at the theater?
Yep, sure did.
Yeah,
no,
me too.
I saw it as soon as it came out on video. Though I was waiting in line, and I'm sure Rob, I know you've heard me and Trav talk about our little video store in our small town, GNL Video. That I mean, in any big new release they get 2 copies. It was a major movie. They had 2 copies, and you just write your name on a list to be in line to reserve it, to rent it. And like I said, a lot of Friday nights were spent sitting in the parking lot there, watching people go in, watching people carry cassettes in, and run in real quick and see if that was your movie.
Yeah.
And Back to the Future Part 3 was one of those movies for me because I saw the first one on VHS, and then the second one, which I don't remember what the release window was on them. What was it, a year?
No, it was 89. Part 1 was 85, and part 3 was 1990, like 1 year after.
Yeah, 1 year after the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Between part 2 and part 3, was it?
Okay, yeah, it was just under. I think it was 10 months or 11 months, but we'll call it a year.
Yeah, because I had saw Back to the Future 2 because I had watched Back to the Future, the original, and Back to the Future 2. I'd rented them both at the same time when Back to the Future 2 came out, and then I was just chomping at the bit, of course, to see with the cliffhanger we were left on to see what happened with part 3. and I got it just shortly after it was released on VHS. I rented it, and I was a sucker for westerns anyway. I grew up on a cattle ranch, and was raised by my grandparents there, and it was just, I'm like, all right, we're gonna. And my granddad would always, I grew up on watching John Wayne movies with him, so I'm like, we're gonna get a western Back to the Future. How much better can it get? And I'm interested in seeing what you guys think about this take on it, because I thought there were a ton of pros and some cons to it.
Well, with me, of course, like I said, I saw the trailer at the movie theater, so I was already jazzed like almost a whole year for this. And like you, I like Western movies, so it was a good mix of comedy meets Western. And in the beginning that Marty was told not to come back, but Marty, so he goes sees Doc Brown again from 1955, and they have to devise another way to get back to 1885. And I love the part where he goes, but Doc, I'm going to run into those Indians. He's like, Marty, you're thinking two-dimensional. There's no Indians when you go to the other side. And what did he run into?
Right, it's Indians.
I was like, holy shit. Like,
a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor, as always in the series. But I don't know. I really thought whenever he went, he's stuck in 1955. I thought we were going to get more bouncing around in time like we did in part 2.
Part 2, yeah.
And it's although I do enjoy part 3 more, I feel like that was kind of missing from this one. That it was just primarily set in the Old West, and I really thought we were going to get more out of it. Although I liked what we got, it wasn't the big grand finale, time hopping finale I was expecting after part 2.
I wonder if they did that way though, Cody, because maybe part 2 didn't draw as much at the box office as they hoped, like part 1 did. They thought maybe it's just better to stay in one time period. Maybe I don't know, but yeah, you're right. That was kind of an element where they already hit that. As a writer, I watch a movie. I'm like, well, what could you do better? How could you tell a story better? And maybe that's something like that would have added to it. But yeah, it was certainly fun. And Rob, that was my favorite scene from the movie, the very beginning when he shoots back in the past. Yeah, and all these Indians are riding at it. He's like trying to get away, and then backs into that cave, and then gets chased out of there by a bear.
By a bear, yeah.
The cavalry chasing the Indians. I did enjoy that movie. But yeah, you're right, Cody. There were some things probably could have done better, but I really did like the movie. And hey, he got to use the name Clint Eastwood. It wasn't hot. It wasn't hot.
What kind of sissy name is that? I thought about that scene.
Yeah.
And then even the callback toward the end when he uses the stove jumping ahead, but when he uses the door off the cast iron stove, like Clint Eastwood did with the body armor and was it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Or
yeah, it was Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah, but the scene I think I enjoy the most is the letter that he had. It was like from Clara Clayton, and like, who's Clara Clayton? And of course, the scene with the runaway thing heading toward the gorge, and of course Doc Brown and Marty save her, and then we find out who Clara Clayton is, and right there, Doc Brown was about to break his own rules because you're not supposed to mess with time continuum, and he was almost telling Marty like, I'm not going back. It's like, Doc, you don't belong here, buddy. like you belong back in 1985, like with me. And he finally comes to his senses. But of course, I just skipped ahead of a lot. But it shows how strong that love can be, because he was willing to risk his real life for basically a replacement life. And the other favorite scene I had is when they had the dance. And he's asking Clara to dance with him, and we get that Mad Dog Tannen scene, and he's like, "Just step off, jerk." He's using 1985 insults towards like someone from the past and like from like a Western place. They don't know what a fucking jerk is.
Oh man, yeah. But what a fun movie it was. Like, yeah, that was probably obviously my second favorite out of the series. It was, yeah, it was so funny how you don't. I wonder if they would have skipped around in time a little bit, Cody. If they would have had something like the name Jerk being thrown around by Billy the Kid 2 years later, or something, you know. Or,
yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah,
that would have been
the
fun.
dialogue was spot on in this film. I really, and that's one of the biggest charms this film has. I think is how they incorporated just the duck out of water, aspect to it.
Yeah. What was the other thing I like? Oh, I like the fact that they threw ZZ Top in there as the band. That was legendary. Like at first you hear them playing, and then you see them spin the guitars. Like I was like, wait a minute, ZZ Top was from 1885 because they kind of looked that old.
that was pretty funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that scene. That whole like scene when they're like at the festival. I love that scene. I love that you get a picture in front of the newly being formed clock tower. Remember that?
Yeah.
So they kept the clock tower involved in Hill Valley. I mean, they did keep a lot of elements, and like I said before, Cody joined us. They kept the Tannen name alive because Mad Dog Tannen was the villain this time. So, like, I love the fact that he played 3 different Tannens, and they were all pretty much the same idea. They're all pretty much assholes.
Well, man,
and he did it so well too.
Yeah, and they kept the principal involved. He was the sheriff in this one. Strickland was the sheriff of the town.
Well, that guy. I didn't notice that.
I can't remember his name, but he is such a cool dude. I've heard.
Yeah.
I think he's still alive, but last I heard here a couple of years ago, he still does indie films. Just if somebody will send him a script that he likes, even super low budget. If they'll pay, he does them for free a lot of the times. He'll just, if they'll pay for his plane ticket and room and board, he'll go out and act in their movie if he likes the script.
That's a class act.
Yeah,
he's already been there and done
been a character actor his pretty much his entire life, and he's just dedicated to the art.
Yeah,
and guys, I just put up some numbers here. If you want this, Rob, Back to the Future, Part 3 was filmed in California and Arizona, produced on a $40 million budget, back to back with Part 2. It was released 6 months after the previous installment.
Okay, 6 months. Okay.
And grossed $245 million worldwide during its initial run, making it the 6th highest grossing film of 1990.
Wow. But what was the name? What was the actress name who played Clara Clayton?
Steenberg? Was it Steenberg?
Mary Steenberg. Yeah.
Steenbergen,
yeah.
Mary Steenbergen, yeah. Ted Danson's wife.
That chase scene was a pretty cool scene too, when she's trying to chase down the train that Doc and Marty are on, and I thought that Doc's thought of staying would end up coming true, because by the time he ended up getting her, there was not enough time to get back to the car. So of course you see them, even though this is unrealistic, Doc using a hoverboard, but they end up like staying in 1885. So I thought that's how they're going to end it. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen to Marty now? Because is Marty's future going to change because he never actually went back in time now? Because Doc Brown would have been way too old to see him in 1985.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then of course they surprised at the end. He made a train into a time portal.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was a cool. But like Cody said, I think they could have come up with some other solutions, and they end up finally destroying the time machine, if you remember, because the real train was coming through and just Yeah, not the
Marty
no.
got
It destroyed the car. Yeah, it destroyed the car,
Yeah.
not the train.
And another movie magic or whatever, but the fact that the train tracks were in the exact same position they were 100 years before, whenever Marty gets back to the future, like, oh, come on, the Indians thing I can buy, but that's a bit much.
Yeah, like a train track staying there. That's hard to swallow. How many years was 100 years in the same position exactly? No,
Well,
I don't
it
think I
might be
can
the
buy
same
that.
place. Probably wouldn't be the same one. I'm no train expert or anything, but the railroad did used to run through the town I live in, Union Pacific, and the trains that, as time went on, they got the bigger, the big freight trains, and the tracks got wider.
Yeah.
So that's just a minor gripe, it's a time travel movie. Okay, you can excuse just about anything because nothing, if you really makes sense if you really think about it very hard. But that being said, I thought it was a great end to the series, the way they wrapped it up. And I feel like we're glossing over all the great stuff that happened in the second act when they're back in the Old West, though. Doc's ice machine. That was. I remember as a kid that really caught my eye. I was like, this is hilarious, and the whole frisbee thing at the fair whenever they had the frisbee brand pie pans, and Marty's like, "Oh, cool, frisbee." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about, man?"
Yeah. Well, he definitely was the stranger in a strange world, though, because Doc had already been there, a couple of years, and so Doc was familiar with all the surroundings, and he welded his own stuff, but yeah, like the scene with the ice I thought that was a little far fetched, but for someone in the future to go back in time and go, he is a genius, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing he didn't stay. He would have brought the Industrial Revolution 20 years faster.
Exactly.
The whole course of a nation. Yeah.
But I said that earlier, though, that without Doc, Marty probably would have been stuck in a different time zone several times. A time area. But because that's why I think Tannen tried to kill Doc committed in part 2, because without Doc, Marty's stuck. Like Marty doesn't know how to do time travel by himself, or back in 1985.
He's just a dumb teenager.
Yeah. He's just going for the ride, and he's like, "This is cool. I can jump anywhere I want." And then in part 2, he tries to steal the almanac so it can be. He basically was trying to do what Biff ended up doing.
And that was a crazy amount of money to be making from the third movie in a trilogy, when usually they go down and how much they bring in.
Yeah.
And it said it was the 6th largest one. So I just got curious. I'm like, what the hell were the other ones that came out, that made, but then I saw the top 2 and I'm like, oh, okay. Ghost and then Home Alone came out that year.
Oh yeah. I saw both of them at the theater that year. Home Alone I saw 3 times at the theater that year.
Oh, that was a great one. But, it looks like the other ones that came out was Pretty Woman, Dances with Wolves, and Total Recall. Those were the top 5. And then this Back to the Future 3 coming in at 6.
What happened to movies, guys? Come on, we were getting this solid gold every year.
Yeah.
For a decade, and
now we're getting what we get.
Now we're getting goose eggs. We're getting goose. I've told this to a lot of people, even a lot of and I've mentioned this to Rob, because you know a lot of people doing independent films and fan fiction, and Hollywood somehow over the past 15 years lost its creativity, and they have to dip into the well to go back and remake these old movies. And that's what I'm saying.
Well, they're staying safe. Yeah, they're trying to do whatever they can to make money.
But people are clamoring for something new. That's why something like Stranger Things, when it came out, was such a big hit. But it just bothers me that they just go back in the well. The good thing about Back to the Future, I know they're never going to F this up, because the 2 Bobs, Bob Zemeckis and Bob what's his face, that wrote it, they got it in the clause that they signed the agreement to make these movies, that they will never make remakes. That the only time they can make a remake is they get approval by both of them, not one of them, but both of them.
They got to wait for both of them to die and their kids to sell the rights.
And basically, they said that, and Bob Zemeckis said, no, we're never going to approve it because we don't want them messing the trilogy up, messing the originals up. So we're never going to. It'll ruin the franchise if they do something else.
I used to think that way, but I'm to the point on it where, with as far as we came with CGI and special effects and everything, if they could do it right, if they could do I mean, I hate the term, but if they could do a requel, and intertwine it with the original 3 films, then I'd be on board for that if they did it right and had a really compelling story.
Yeah, that's the thing that's missing, I think, a lot of times. Is you got great technology these days to do so much, but they lean too much on the technology. And back then, they didn't have that, so the stories had to be better. You had to have great storytelling.
Well, yeah, for the last 15 years, we've been getting Transformers and Marvel movies. And
I know kids love them. I know kids love them, and they're entertaining.
Star Wars, when they came up with the first 3 movies, I thought their ships were way nicer than 3, 4, and 5. And to me, like, that's supposed to be before. You're supposed to make the ships look like less feeble, I guess. Like, but they try to do advancements on these ships, and like those ships would have killed the TIE fighters and the destroyers and everything. I'm like, aren't we supposed to make it look older? Like,
yeah,
don't even get me started on the prequels. You know how I feel about those, Rob.
And it's funny because you brought that up, Rob, is because I just got a question. What about all the Star Wars spinoffs? And those are hit and miss.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, there's some that are really good, and then there's some that's like, I don't know. They somewhere along the lines, I guess they had a lot of the cartoons, and they spun off some shows from the cartoons, and I didn't watch all those. So I'm one of the
when you're doing live action spinoffs of cartoon series, I mean, you're really kind of reaching there. That being said, I thought Ashoka was okay. Didn't love it, but it was good. Held my attention.
It was good. I liked it pretty well.
But Obi-Wan now.
That was good.
I enjoyed Obi-Wan.
Yeah. And then, of course, the first Mandalorian was good. The second season, could have done without it.
Yeah.
I think the best one that they did that was a spinoff was that series for Andor. Cassian
That's Andor. The only one I haven't watched yet.
And because it was a spinoff of Rogue One. But that whole series, because you got so much detail about what happened behind the scenes to set up a rebellion and what it takes to have a rebellion. There were no Jedi fights, none of that stuff, but it was a solid story all the way through. And to me, that answered a lot of questions. But the Star Wars stuff, that's also hit and miss. And I know some people like things, other people don't like it. That's fine, to each their own. I'll drink to that, Cody. And but it's. Yeah, I mean, it's I guess same thing when it comes to movies that are like trilogies like this one, Back to the Future.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope they uphold that clause about never remaking this, because I've said stuff in the past where I'm like, oh, I hope they don't remake this, and like 3 years later, I'm like, hey, guess what? We're making this movie. I'm like, fuck you! Like, leave the past alone.
Why mess?
Be more creative. Yeah. Like Cody, when I was on your show, we did the Dawn of the Dead remake. I love that one. I was not mad at all because they did it justice and they did it better.
And they did it different.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder put his own spin on it, and it worked.
They kept them all. That's pretty much it. That they kept them all setting. But I like how they did it. I liked the story. I liked the acting. I liked everything about it. And like we talked about, the zombies in the original were just, to me, they were just too unbelievable. Like, we get Night of the Living Dead, which were amazing zombies. We get Day of the Dead, amazing zombies. And then you have the one that's in the middle that's like, what happened here? Like... So I'm not totally against remakes, but there are a few exceptions, and I think, to me, this is one of them. Leave Back to the Future alone. If you want to do a part 4, I mean, they're doing that with Ghostbusters now. They're bringing back part 3. Now I just saw the trailer for part 4. And it's gonna be back in New York, so I just hope Slimer's real. I hope Slimer's really dead on a personal level. Go ahead.
No, I enjoyed Afterlife. I took the whole family to see it. My kids loved the first 2, all of them, and it, like I'd mentioned before, there was not a dry eye among the whole family.
Yeah, Harold Ramis
rolled at the end, and that speaks volumes there. I mean, if you can connect to the younger audience and the older nostalgic audience, then you're doing something right.
That's a damn hard thing to pull off.
Exactly. That's a lightning in a bottle that a lot of these remakes, requels, whatever the next fad is, are
well, they have the legacy films now too. Legacy films are popular.
Legacy sequels.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Exorcist Believer yet. I know you did, but I'm probably not going to watch it.
It's
maybe
okay.
Someday.
Without any spoilers, all I'll say is the story is really good. The possession scenes are terrific. And then the rest is like the exorcism scene is terrible. Like there's not one thing I believed about the exorcist scene. And of course, Ellen Burstyn, her character is wasted. Like it was cool to see her. Because she's an old woman now. She's like in her
mid 90.
Yeah, like 87, 88. And she does a fine job, but her character's pretty much wasted. It was just there to say, hey, we know somebody that knows about exorcisms. That's pretty much her only use there, is to talk about what happened with Reagan. And the rest of the movie she's in, but it's like, why? Because she's not doing anything. It's
like, hey,
yeah.
Blumhouse is like, hey, we paid a shit ton of money, like $400 million for the IP to get to make three of these movies and throw that title on there. So let's we got to do something to validate this, and let's just throw in a cameo from a glorified cameo, from what I understand. Like I said, I haven't seen it, but from Ellen Burstyn and. Well, I don't want to ruin it for anybody what the other big cameo is. Although I haven't seen it, but it's been plastered all over Facebook and social media.
I already know.
They paid $400 million for the rights to make 3.
Yeah.
Did they not see The Exorcist 2 and how bad that bombed? Like, I don't know if I would have bought for 3.
Now, Exorcist 3, I really dig.
Great. It didn't make a lot of money, but it's gathered a huge following over the years. George C. Scott is just fucking great in it.
Actor.
The movie is great. The movie's Brad Dourif. Oh my God.
Brad Dourif is terrific.
Arguably, and fight me over it, but that's his best role.
Even
over Chucky.
I agree with you, Cody. He's amazing. Like, why haven't he's been in more movies that he gets to be himself and not a doll? And don't get me wrong, I love the Chucky series, but I want to see him in front of the camera more. Like, terrific actor.
Oh, absolutely.
So, since we've been off the topic of part 3, what do you guys give your beer system, your Yuengling?
Whatever the fuck. This is not an American name for a beer, okay?
Well,
the first American brewery. Okay.
I have Sam Adams.
I would like to apologize for that because our country is a beautiful melting pot of all different cultures. So yes, whatever the fuck that is an American name. Sorry, I retract that last statement. That being said, I would give part 3 4.5. these beers because it just has a charm to it, and I'm a sucker for westerns. And the like you said, the duck out of water aspect is played so well in this. The comedy works fantastically in it, and just for a trilogy, it has one of the most satisfying endings, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's right up there. It is a worthy sequel to the original.
And Cyrus.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great ending, great movie, a lot of fun. I thought it was so cool. You got to use the name Clint Eastwood, and somebody thought he was a sissy for it, but it's like, how cool was that? Like the only other name he could have used instead of Clint Eastwood that would have, like, really I thought would have been cool would have been Hondo, but he didn't use Hondo, so it's okay. Not everybody. I know. So, but no, I would give this a solid 4 too. I mean, well, let me. I gave the first one a 4. Let me back up. I'll give this a 3.8. How's that? Like really close, but it was a great movie. It's hard to follow in the footsteps of that first one, but they did it and wrapped it up with a nice bow at the end. I thought it was a great trilogy.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. 4 on this one. Great ending. Some of the scenes were very iconic, just like the first movie. The relationship between Clara and Doc was terrific because that's something that was new to the series. Marty had a girlfriend, but like Doc was always kind of like that loner who always concentrated on his inventions more than living life. And now, like this time, he actually had a reason to enjoy life because he's falling in love, and so he does end up bringing them back. And I love how he named his kids Jules and Bern because that was his favorite writer. So like it was almost a perfect ending to any kind of trilogy I've ever seen. So
yeah. It just left you satisfied, and that is a rarity these days. They're always trying to leave you on a cliffhanger or something to hook you in to try to to basically to make more money. And this was a good bookend, which we rarely get anymore.
Yes, exactly. And I love that in 2015 they both joined the Jimmy Kimmel show in the DeLorean. Like they came onto the Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, and Marty's asked because Marty was starting to be in tough shape there with his Parkinson's, but he looks at Jimmy and goes, "So have they invented the flying cars yet?" And Jimmy's like, "No." He's like, "Well, what about these?" "No." He goes, "What do you do here?" and Jimmy's like, "Well, we have these phones that can take your like a selfie." And he looks at Doc and goes, 2015 kind of sucks. I love how they kind of came there and poked fun at because 2015 was the date they arrived. It was on the date that they arrived in 2015. So that's what made it kind of cool.
That was cool.
But,
that being said, one more thing about Back to the Future 3.
Yeah,
it would have a whole other point for me. What did I give it? 4.5. Okay, another half point for me. I don't know if Mary Steenburgen and Ted Danson were married at the time, but if they would have walked in through the saloon and it would have had Ted Danson as the bartender and the cashiers sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And if they broke up, when everybody knows your name.
That was Easy Top playing that. That would be great.
Oh, but only if what's his name? Woody Harrelson would have joined Sam. That would have been great too. But so next show, guys, we'll do some promoting, but I'm just gonna plug this real fast. Next show, we haven't set a date yet, but it's gonna be sometime in mid-December. That way it gives everybody time, everybody on the network, and me and Cyrus a little break, before the new year. We're going to talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night. Obviously, Christmas season. We got to go with a Christmas classic, and so I'll be posting the date as soon as I I know a good date for both me, Cyrus, and obviously our awesome producer who's still doing the show, even though he's at a game right now. So kudos to you, man. And Cody, is there a Backwoods Horror coming soon?
I don't know.
It's like, I don't know. I just do shows that they give me.
Somebody messes, my phone goes off, and I say, "Yeah, sure, okay." No, we. I don't know if we're gonna have another one November. We may try to. Still may try. Well, gonna try to. No guarantees to catch Eli Ross Thanksgiving, but that may not be till the new year if we're not able to. But you will probably see us before the end of the year, though. We'll sneak back in December sometime, probably. I know we talked with Poe a little bit about doing a big Christmas episode for the network. We'll see how that works out.
I like to be part of that too.
We'll all definitely try to get together before the end of the year.
Maybe we can have a Ne'er Do Wells Christmas show. It will all appear on the Ne'er Do Wells show.
You could have an ugly sweater episode.
And Cyrus, I know you have a special guest coming soon to Gonzo Chronicles.
Yeah.
You want to?
Yeah, a guy by the name of Rob Mahoney, God's Gift to Women. He's going to be coming on. We're going to talk about some, I guess, underrated films, right, from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I can dig that.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that and then whatever else comes up, because you never know what comes up in the Gonzo Chronicles.
We've done all kinds of topics, haven't we? We've done everything from conspiracy theories. Yes, Miss Father Mahoney was on a show with conspiracy theories once, and we've done hair bands. We've done the favorite wrestlers and
we talked big time wrestling.
Yeah,
wrestling.
So
talked about bird types, different types of birds.
The tit
bird. We talked about the great tit of England. All right, the tit birds. Like, there's a whole species of tits. Everyone should know about them. And then let's see what else. I got a couple of guests coming up. We're gonna have a couple more episodes before the end of the year on Gonzo, and just working on a new book. So
yes, and then we'll plug Aaron's shows, Aaron's and Joey T's. So Jack Transmission was just this past week, and I'm not sure if they're going to do another one before the end of the year. I think I remember Poe saying they were going to do one more, because obviously all of us want to enjoy the seasons, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So this last month and a half, our friends who watch us, there's not going to be a lot of shows, but they're always entertaining. So
we'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, and I think he's still doing the Brew Crew for right now, because I know Aaron loves that. I think that's his love show.
Brew Crew. I think they are done for the rest of the year. I think. I believe so.
Yeah, and then of course you talked about hopefully we can all get together for a Christmas episode. I would really like that. And Cyrus, obviously you're on our network now, so you're going to be invited if we can all get a date together. Like, we got a lot of people
that's
here.
That's the trick, folks. Getting it to where all our busy schedules can work out where we can all get together at the same time. So hopefully that'll happen. If not, we'll see you next year.
Yeah. So I want to wish all of our viewers on all of our channels happy Thanksgiving, happy safe Thanksgiving. We appreciate every single one of you who watch any one of our shows or all of our shows, or try to watch our shows and then get sick of us and click off. So, which probably happens more often than not, but we appreciate you guys, and happy Thanksgiving. And if you guys have anything to say to the crowd about Thanksgiving, now's the time. So,
no, I'll just say, like you, man, thanks everybody for tuning into the shows, the podcast, people that pick my books up online on Amazon. Appreciate the hell out of all of it. Just eat the hell out of some turkey. Don't choke on the bone, brothers.
Cody, you have anything else to say to our fans of the
check out Cyrus's books and tune in to Dognut Media.
Or Dog Shit Media, either one.
Dog Shit Media. I'm sorry. Thanks for correcting me. I apologize.
And Cody, you want to plug the store for everybody?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget that? Everybody, swing on over to teespring.com and check out all of Dognut Media's great merchandise. Just do teespring.com / the name of the show. Whatever the name of the show. Father Mahoney's House of Horrors, of course. Backwoods Horror Show. Jack Transmission. What else am I missing?
Backwoods Horrors. the ne'er-do-wells, and we have the Dognut Media shirts too.
But yeah, check out all the great merchandise over there on teespring.com. And a little bit of the proceeds go back into the network. So we appreciate anything that you folks want to contribute. And thanks most of all for sitting with us and listen to us ramble on about the movies we love. And,
I just want to thank one more person too before we leave, and that's our producer. The man, he's a work machine. He does a lot of stuff at home with his family. He works a lot, and he always has time to help each one of our shows, and of course his shows. So big shout out to Mr. Poe. So.
Absolutely.
MVP.
One more. A little early birthday to the other half of the Backwoods Horror Show, Travis Christian. His birthday is tomorrow, so big shout out to him. You're old and getting bald, so enjoy that or whatever.
So on that note, we wish you a Merry Christmas. It's too early for that. Happy birthday, Travis, and thank you once again. And we'll be coming back, like I said, mid-December for one last House of Horrors, and we'll do these House of Retros again sometime soon, guys. If you like them, definitely place a comment and ask us if maybe leave a request. Say, hey, we want you guys to do this movie. We'll take it under consideration. So much love, everybody. We can go. Bye-bye now.